On behalf of my co-chair, Janet Beatty, and the entire board of the Winnetka Public Schools Foundation, I welcome you all to Keeping Up with Our Connected Kids in the Classroom and Beyond. Our three panelists are experts in the areas of internet safety, the digital classroom, and the use of iPads in school and for doing homework. We can't wait to hear their insights, and we thank them for being with us this evening. The Winnetka Public Schools Foundation supports all the schools of Winnetka District 36, enabling the district to offer an education that goes above and beyond what would be possible through tax dollars alone. To find out more, please visit our website at wpsf.org. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Carolyn Fortin and Nancy Freed, the board members who coordinated this event. Thank you as well to Allison Hawley and Matt Fuller from District 36, and to all the other district administrators and staff members who are helping us bring this special event to you tonight. Now, I'd like to introduce Matt Fuller, the Technology Director for District 36, who will moderate this event and introduce our experts. Matt.
Thank you very much, Ann, and it's such a pleasure to be here tonight, and thank you very much for everyone who has come. I got the pleasure of working with Allison about a few months ago, where we started working with the foundation, and we talked about some of the things that were important to the community right now that we're hearing that we want to learn more about. And one of the key topics was technology and how our students are using technology at home and in school. And we had this idea where we tried to narrow down the topics. And I remember this conversation very well, where we had so many topics we wanted to cover, we couldn't figure out what we wanted to cover. So we decided to cover them all. And that's why tonight we have three speakers who are amazing, and you're going to learn a little bit from each of them. And I have the pleasure of both sort of moderating the night and also introducing everyone. So as you all came in, I believe you got a note card and one of these very cool stylus/pens. So as you're listening to the speakers, if you could please write down any follow-up questions that you have. When the three speakers are done, each of them are going to give about a 15 to 20 minute talk each, sort of like in a TED Talk type format. And then we're going to meet over there in the living room, and we're going to sit down and have a panel discussion, and I'll be moderating that with your question cards. So please, for my benefit, write questions on cards as you're listening to the speakers, so I have some questions to ask our speakers. And we'll be doing that for about a half hour at the end. So without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker. Marge Monroe is a clinical social worker and educator with more than 20 years of counseling, programming, and teaching experience in schools. Marge is one of the founders of Children Online, a comprehensive consulting company providing up-to-date information about the use and impact of technology on child and adolescent development. She has worked with thousands of students and parents since 1997, providing developmentally tailored presentations on the rapidly changing topic of children, teens, and technology use. She has served in several education positions, including Dean of Students, Director of Counseling, Upper School Counselor, and Counselor and Substance Abuse Coordinator. Marge co-authored the book, Safe Practices for Life Online, a guide for middle and high school, a book that's now in its second edition. This is Marge's third presentation today in Winnetka. This afternoon, she spoke with students here at the Skokie School, and after school, she presented to district teachers, both times on topics of online safety and appropriate uses of social media for children. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Marge Monroe.
I feel so strongly about keeping our kids safe and healthy and developmentally in their best interests as they're using technologies. As I was a social worker, mostly in boarding schools throughout my career, I quickly learned in 1998 that the world was changing as kids were beginning to email each other and breaking up with each other, and that was a major deal. And at that time, I what do you mean? So what? You never met the person. I don't get it. Why is that a big deal? I didn't really say that to kids, by the way, but it was a big deal, and it's changed the way kids relate to each other, the way they behave, communication, and so that started me on this path. So let's get started. So what I want to do is look at the incredible, amazing benefits of technology. Who would have thought that my King Princess phone attached to the wall would now be a smartphone that you can carry anywhere? It's incredible where we have come, and that's incredible. The technology is amazing, but what we need to do as parents and educators is really think about developmentally, when are our kids ready developmentally to handle a smartphone, to handle internet video games, to handle handheld devices, whatever it is they're doing. Those are questions that we need to ask ourselves, and it's tough to do that today. So really quickly, child development, as you probably know, is really just looking at what this means for our kids right now. When you're looking at K through 8, especially K through 5, kids are oriented to right now. They have a very limited understanding of time. They have a very limited understanding of life outside of their scope. Today, when I asked the 5th and 6th graders, I said, what is the average age of someone who is a gamer in the US? The kids guessed 10, 5, 8. Someone guessed, I think the oldest was 12. The answer is 30. But kids think whatever they're doing, that's what everyone else online is doing, and that's developmentally appropriate for them. The ego-centered nature of kids, really, that gets them into trouble a lot. Kids need clear and consistent guidelines. A 2-year-old needs a gate, 5-year-old needs a handheld crossing the street, a 10-year-old needs reminders to take showers, the 12-year-old may need guidance before they go to a sleepover or whatever it may be. The 16-year-old, you have to have clear guidelines about the car and going out and safety. We have those things. They don't exist online. We have to do it, and it's very hard. Middle school, as you probably know, is the #1 time for meanness and bullying. Kids are very vulnerable. Identity theft, the fastest growing population is middle school kids for identity theft. Impersonation. Meanness and social drama happens a lot. I talk to school social workers all over the country, and it can be tough for kids as they are really struggling to communicate and figure all that out. A lot of drama arises. There's a lot of gaming, especially among the boys, in middle school and in 5th grade. Kids this age share far too much information. As Matt knows, I talk way too much, but I will say that one of my favorite things about middle school, when I was a counselor in middle school, is that the kids never came in one-on-one, they came in a pack. So you'd have 10 kids in my office sitting on each other, braiding their hair, whatever. Then they come in and say, Miss Monroe, we have something to tell you, but you can't tell anyone else. I said, oh great, besides the 12 of us in this room, let's just keep it confidential. Middle school kids, they think everything's private, but they tell everybody everything. That's the way they are, and so social media just feeds that. And they are targets, as I said. One of the things that I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about online and with electronic communication is that kids are making moral decisions every day. Moral decisions like, should I put that post? Should I put that picture up even though it's sort of embarrassing? Should I friend that person who is mean to someone else? Should I respond back? Should I do this? Those are all moral decisions. And as we know from moral development, kids really aren't ready to say, you know what, I'm not going to do that because I think it's going to hurt someone. That really doesn't happen until 15, 16. So really thinking about when are our kids developmentally ready to make these split-second decisions in these social networking groups. Boys, come to communication online through gaming. You probably know that. Minecraft, Call of Duty Black Ops, which is the #1 video game in the country right now. Boys are very reluctant to talk about harassment. In fact, in the nationwide, it's about 18% of kids who actually tell an adult they've been bullied. It's much lower for boys. Boys really have a hard time with that. Boys do a lot of risk-taking in their gaming communities where they're chatting, and they also feel they don't want to appear weak or vulnerable, so they often put themselves on risk by living up to peer pressure type things in gaming sites. Girls, on the other hand, go online to form connections, make connections, and maintain connections. They are using words to change behavior. In other words, if a boy is in a conversation and someone's bullying, a 5th grade boy is likely to say, hey, I'm going to get you back. They're going to fight back. That's sort of a younger boy's instinct. A girl, when she's in a conversation and can be mean, and often, this is generalizing by the way, but can often say things like, hey, why is this happening? Cut it out. But they'll stay in the conversation thinking that they might change behavior down the road. By the way, interesting research about life online is that kids stay engaged in negative conversations because they think a positive outcome is coming. Even though someone's incredibly mean and very abusive, they think something good is coming, so they'll hang in there, and that's how kids become victimized. Kids' online communication, much like me right now, is rushed and urgent. It is reactive rather than proactive. There's a sense of ownership, and they're driven by social drama. Deception is routine. One of my favorite things is that kids lie every day online, easily, but they often believe what people tell them online. 24/7 connection gives kids this idea of false urgency. Wait a minute, why isn't he texting me back? It's been 10 minutes, I don't understand. Does he not like me anymore? There's just this urgency in communication for kids. And they're often hi, how are you? I do this sometimes. You guys do that when you have a brain thing? I don't know if it's age or anyway, you can read it. And reckless. So what we want to do is move kids from feeling impulsive to being more restrained, from being vulnerable to be strong. So as you can see, we want to move kids to act engagedly, safely, and responsibly. And for some of our kids, they can't not be impulsive. My 11-year-old son can't not be impulsive. He can't not do things that might get him in trouble. It's very difficult for him. We want kids to be thoughtful, compassionate, focused on the future. Those things are very difficult to find and do online. Here are the trending websites right now. What's interesting is that some of the new things, you may know some of these, Keek are apps that are for messaging and social networking. They are becoming very popular. Instagram, Vine, which is Instagram for like YouTube, 8-second video type things. Snapchat, Twitter, and then what's falling out of favor a little bit, Facebook, addicting games, mini clip that used to be huge, and Hulu, although Hulu's sort of staying where it is. Interesting that more kids today watch TV and movies online than they do through cable or other venues. Here's just some stats on gaming. Just quick recommendations, because I know my time is short, I really don't recommend M-rated video gaming for kids under 14. I know it's hard to do, and my son is miserable because I don't let him play Call of Duty Black Ops with his best friends, and it's really, really, really hard. But just to keep in mind that there's actually more violence and sexual and adult content allowed in M-rated video games than there are in R-rated movies. So parents who are not allowing R-rated movies are allowing a lot more adult content in M-rated video games. So just thinking about that is important. Social media networking. Probably social networking. Kids are now, as you know, we have kids as young as 9, 10, 11. The COPA law in the United States, which says that you must be 13 years of age before you can consent by yourself without a parent to an account. That's great. Unfortunately, we have millions of kids, tens of millions of kids in online accounts before they're 13 without parental permission because there's no enforcement. Parents often then think, well, everybody else is doing it, I'm just going to let my kid do it. Really, social networking demands a level of decision-making, critical thinking, that our kids just aren't ready for before they're 13 or 14. So if you do have kids in social networking media, I really suggest having some strong guidelines in place, limiting the number of friends, limiting the amount of time, having the passwords for all their accounts, going in and checking. By the way, I never recommend friending your kids. Be their parent and supervise, and have their password. As their friend, you don't have their you don't have the keys to the kingdom. You just have what they want to show you. They can block you from certain things. Keep in mind that kids are very targeted. I just showed you because this is one of the targets on the new smartphones. There's actually, we're getting a lot of advertising spam and tricks through smartphones now, which is, by the way, the majority of kids in the country access through their smartphones rather than a desktop or a tablet. They're not accessing through a regular computer. So important to keep in mind. Bullying. 1 out of 4 kids, and by the way, you can go to almost any government bullying site and all the stats are right around the same. It's very interesting. But 1 out of 4 kids are bullied in the U.S., they say. 55% of those kids have witnessed bullying in their school. 78% of kids are saying they've never told an adult if they've been bullied. 85% of kids who view bullying choose to do nothing. That is a big deal today. And what I said to the 5th and 6th grade today is that you can do something. I don't ever want you to confront a bully. I don't want kids to ever have someone be mean to them. But what they can do is if they see bullying or hear about bullying, start talking about it. Just say to your best friend, to your mom, to your teacher, you know what, I don't like bullying. I saw it today and I don't like it. Even though it seems like a small thing, it's not. It begins conversations among kids that is anti-bullying rather than no conversations, and it leaves the bullies in charge. So just beginning those conversations helps. Okay. So I've got to wrap up soon. Interestingly here, if you look, 53% of kids admit to saying something mean or harassing to someone else online. I just want you all to think about that for a moment. Go back to your own childhoods when it would have been unthinkable, even if we did do something mean to someone else, we never would have told someone else that we did it. It was just culturally unacceptable to admit that you do that. Today, it's culturally acceptable to be mean. People are mean online. It happens. Oh, it'll get better. So there's this cultural acceptance about meanness that should not be there. And we need to help our kids understand that although there is meanness, it's not okay. You are a great person. It's not okay for someone to be mean to you. Here are some things you can do. Keep the lines of communication open, listen with compassion, talk with other parents and teachers, administration when things happen. A village, it always helps to have a village. Encourage your kids to talk to you whenever they're scared, hurt, or upset. Try to keep that communication open and always have clear and consistent rules for technology in your home. Talk with your kids a lot. Keep those conversations going. Ask them what they're doing. Ask them where they are. By the way, don't ever be afraid to appear that you don't know what you're doing online, because it's not about technology. Technology is about communication, relationships, and parenting. We know our kids. We know parenting. We may not know technology, but we know how to take care of our kids, and that's much more important than the technology. Explain that the delete word doesn't exist. I hate that word. Nothing's ever deleted. Don't assume even if you deleted it from Facebook, that just means it's off the active mainframe. Doesn't mean it's gone. Have non-negotiable expectations in your own home and stick to them. And when your kid can cheat and do it at the library or do it at a friend's house, or that's okay, you have those clear and consistent rules in your home and don't waver. Because they go to their friend's house knowing that in your home, it's not okay. You love your kids, you want them safe, and this is the rules in their home. Teach kids that any mistakes they make online, there is no second chance. The only chance is before you post. I hate that for the kids of the world today, but that's the truth. So I do have a website, and I've shared a whole lot of information, and by the way, I took out 50 slides of what I normally do, so you can imagine. I'm going to leave a whole lot of information with Matt for you, and he can either post that or do something. So thank you very much for your time.
Charlene Chauces is the Creativity and Innovation Specialist, best title in the world, for mobile pedagogy at Aptekissick Trip District 102 in Buffalo Grove. In this capacity, she supports teachers and students participating in a one-to-one iPad program as part of the district's Personal Technology Initiative. For more than 16 years, Shara served as the Technology Training and Integration Manager at Stevenson High School in Lincolnshire. She is passionate about integration of technology in education and publishes several blogs and websites on various tech integration topics. She also has a keen interest in the future of digital publishing and has provided presentations, workshops, and seminars on techniques for creating digital publications. In 2007, she was named the Educational Leader of the Year by the Illinois Computing Educators and Outstanding Leader of the Year by the International Society for Technology and Education. Charlene is recognized as a Google Certified Teacher, a Discovery Educator, and an Apple Distinguished Educator. Charlene will be speaking about making the transition from paper to digital in the classroom. Please join me in welcoming my friend Charlene Chauces.
Thanks for that great introduction, Matt. You heard my name, and I'm currently working at Aptekissick Trip, which is just a neighbor out to the west of you guys here. And I want to share a story a little bit about how we got to what we call a PTI, or a Personal Technology Initiative. Aptekissick Junior High School is where I'm currently stationed. We have 7th and 8th grade at the junior high, and our middle school is 5th and 6th grade. There's 4 schools in the district with about 2,000 students total. We're at a one-to-one initiative with with iPad for all grades 5, 6, 7, and 8. And we started that several years ago. Last year we were just grades 5 and 7, and this year we went to 5, 6, 7, 8. So I want to talk a little bit about how we got to where we are. And one of the things that our district did was in community, we had a planning document, our learning vision into action, and you can go online and see our plan. And one of the things in our plan, in our 5-year goal, was that we wanted to be sure that every student will think, communicate, explore situations, and solve problems in challenging learning environments and rich experiences incorporating the latest models and resources. So that's part of our goal. And as part of that planning, when the community got together and the faculty, it was the faculty that first came to the committee and said, what would it take to put a device, a personal learning device, into every student's hands? Could we do that? So we looked at our technology planning, our obsolescence or whatever, and we came up with, yes, as we're replacing computers, we're now going to bring iPads in, because we thought that the iPads would help us reach our goals of meeting those 21st century skills and learning, promoting collaboration, creativity, communication, and critical thinking. So some of the things that we've done along the way, as we were putting together our idea for the PTI, was we wanted to have learner-centered policies. We were wondering, what do we have to do when we bring all these devices in? How are we going to manage them? And we wanted to start as open as possible, and then, start from unlock and then step back where necessary, and thinking about what should we do and what not to do, but we wanted to focus on what we should do. So if you look around the school, you'll see posters in the school of all the do's for your iPad and not don'ts. So we have posters promoting positive things and the ways that we want the students to use the iPads. When we started our planning, we got together and we thought, what are our greatest hopes for this initiative? We wrote all those things down, we threw them into a Wordle. Have you ever seen that you take a bunch of paragraphs and put it together? The words that come out the biggest are the ones that we saw the most. So everything, our greatest hopes was that we were hoping that learning was going to happen. Everything that we were going to do was for the students. And you can see that those came up really, really big. In that same planning document, we also thought about, well, what are our greatest fears? What's going to happen if we bring these devices in? What are our worst fears? And you can see some of the big words in that paragraph came up as work and time. How much time is this going to take? How much extra work it's going to take? Or are we going to be, straddled? The tech is going to get in the way. We didn't want the tech to get in the way of the learning. Because remember, the learning was the biggest thing that we wanted to try to achieve. So we started putting together and identifying what our curriculum needs were. And the teachers, in the spring before we brought the devices in, started meeting on a regular basis and looking at what is it that we needed to do. So they thought that it was important that we had a learning management system, an LMS, and especially that's helpful for junior high students. We were looking at, we wanted to be sure that these are personal learning devices, so that there had to be some piece of productivity or organization component. Because with executive functioning for junior high especially, getting kids organized is a big deal. We wanted to think about what kind of electronic workflow, how are we going to get artifacts between the teacher and the student back and the teacher, and what are those long-range plans, because we always have these major projects, in every grade we have major projects, and how are the iPads going to support that? What do we need to be able to bring that on board? So the must-haves, we decided at the time, was going to be definitely the learning management system, definitely the digital note-taking and productivity, and then those ways that we could collaborate together. So we put together a list of apps, and we're kind of lean. We looked at the content and textbook apps. We didn't want too many things that were dependent upon a one-time use, a limited use. Okay, we're going to study, cells, so we want to bring a science app for just cells. But we wanted to focus more on things that we could demonstrate learning through across all the curriculum, and things that would promote creativity and would work with any subject. We wanted to take advantage of the capabilities of the iPad, that multimedia capability, and we also looked at workflow. We also started in the same year, became a Google Apps for Education district, so we knew that we had that as a vehicle besides working with the iPad and those apps. So some of the things that you see on the slide, we stuck with iMovie and Keynote for presentations, Puppet Pals as the little thing where you see the director's chair there, create a book builder so that we could create digital content and explain everything, which is a presentation app. Google Drive is the way that we move a lot of things around. And then we've also included some reference or utility apps and some productivity. And Wolfram Alpha is a great reference app that our students really appreciate. Notability is what we rely on almost day to day, and Schoology are our workflow apps. We looked at learning models, and this is a picture of Dr. Ruben Puntadera, who came up with a framework of looking at learning tasks. And when you start bringing in technology for the learning, what are you actually doing with that tech? Are you substituting the tech for something else because you had paper before, now you're using technology? Are you augmenting the tech as a direct tool substitute with a little bit of improvement? Are you modifying the learning tasks? Are you redefining what the students are doing because they have tools now that they could never do the same type of learning before? So we started looking at our learning tasks as well. When we're trying to promote the 4Cs, the multimedia part of the iPad really lent itself well. Having the built-in microphone and the camera and the instant access to those tools. Anytime we tried to do a multimedia project before, we had to check out a card, we had to reserve lab time, students couldn't work on it on their own time. Now kids can pick up their iPad and continue working any time of the day or night. You see kids in the hallway recording all the time. It's often that we have an all-school email going out that, our students are recording in the hall. If they're disruptive, let me know, because they're always creating something. We have a couple of walls in the building that we painted green for green screen effects, so kids will be acting out different scenarios in front of this green screen during the school day. And so it happens all the time. Having Google Drive to be able to share that information has really helped in Schoology. Also, we use the enterprise version of Schoology, so a lot of products are just uploaded directly to the teacher's Dropbox. Different ways of collaboration. This is a video of, we had a brand new student from Korea that came in, and so the kids went around and took a group with a camera and introduced the student to all the different parts of the school. This is where the nurse is. This is where you go when you're sick. This is where you go to take out the books in the library. And so they worked together to put this little welcoming video together so when new students come in, they can show that. So they can be a positive contributor while respecting the ideas of others. In creativity, this is a public service announcement that was created to talk about students need to read more because the literacy of children is not that great when they get to, if you look at inmates in prison, 45% of them reading are like a 4th grade level. I can't remember the statistics, but it's in the video. And the last thing is critical thinking, and this is the video that we use an app called Puppet Pals, and this was a First Amendment video where they actually had to reenact a trial and then figure out, were they really guilty or was the verdict true or not. So those are some of the videos that I'm not going to be able to show you. Another thing that we use a lot with the camera, we use QR codes. You know what QR codes are? Those little kind of boxy looking images. And you find those all over our school. We'll have scavenger hunts. That little red picture up there talks about scavenger hunts. We have check-in and check-out form. The students come into class and leave class. They check in, they scan themselves in or scan themselves out if they need to be out of the class for any time. We have forms. We use Google Forms a lot. So if the teacher's not available, and she has a QR code on her door that says, I missed you, please leave me a message that you were here and I'll follow up with you. So the little form says, Mrs. Morales wasn't there, what do you need? And I will find you. So students, if they come to the classroom, the teachers aren't there. We use it to join events. We have book reviews that kids are doing and publishing them in their Google Drive, and then they're all over the walls. And now we're making our librarian's making a read box wall. You know what red box is for the videos? He's having a read box. So he's putting all the little QR codes like on the covers of books, and they can go and read the reviews from their fellow students, which is kind of fun. One of the things that we use all the time is Schoology. I know you guys in this district are also using Schoology. So the things that our teachers and students are using it for, classroom discussions, teacher and student messaging. Students can message one another within Schoology or message the teacher. Teachers are using it for quizzes and polls. We use it to post all of our classroom resources, PDFs from the classwork. We have school news and announcements that go out there every morning. Our students record the morning announcements. We have a little news booth or whatever, and they record those, and those are shown through Schoology. We manage our clubs and our groups through that. Kids have their personal calendar. When teachers put things on the calendar, it shows up for the student as well. And then the assignment Dropbox has been a way that's great for teachers and students to collect electronic work. So we've become almost paperless in using Schoology especially. And the best part about this is that the kids never lose anything. So there's no excuses. You can't say I lost it, I left it at home, because you always have your iPad with you, you always have access to your work. because Schoology works besides an app on the iPad, and they can get to it on the internet. If they didn't take their iPad home, and they can get to any internet device, they go to public libraries, they can get to what they need in Schoology. So Schoology has become a great way to organize our students, and they even appreciate that as well. The other piece of our workflow that really we depend upon is an app called Notability. Notability allows students to write and type and draw and even voice record within the app. It brings PDFs in from Schoology and sends them back into Schoology. So the workflow works really well for both of those items together. And it automatically backs up to Google Drive. It's set up so that if students do lose their device or something happens, their work is constantly being saved for them. So they really have no excuses not to get their work done or to find their work when it is done. One of the things that we do to help bring the students into where they need to be is we have an iLearning Day at the beginning of the year. And the iLearning Day kind of started out from last year when the 7th grade was becoming very adept at some of the apps and better than the teachers. We had the students teach each other. We put together a really shortened schedule where we had 20-minute rotations of topics. And so one of the things that our students were presenting to other students was one called I Study and I Manage. So we had a 7th grade student presenting this to his peers, and the 3 apps that they were organizing and helping the kids to learn to organize was one called Reminders and Assignment Notebooks. Why do you need one? Well, you don't have one because we have an iPad. So the Reminders app can be used just like an assignment notebook. You can write things down and check them off. We also use an app called Flashcardlet, so you can see kids doing flashcards as they're walking through the gym. They're actually studying their flashcards, and they can share those with one another, which is kind of fun. And then we also had, at the end of the year, student creating tutorials. So we have tutorials on our YouTube channel. If you just go to CCSD, Community Consolidated School District, CCSD 102, and search for us on YouTube. We have a lot of student artifacts out there, and the junior high tutorials. They have 14 different tutorials that they created at the end of the year, so that the students coming in this year can go and say, well, how do I take a file in Notability and drop it to my teacher in the Dropbox? So we have a lot of support between the students and the students teaching teachers. And I just want to end with this one quote here. This is the blog post. We also have a blog that we started, and we're collecting stories from the students about their learning. And it's just part of everyday learning. And Courtney is a 7th grade student. I'm just going to open this up bigger so I can read it myself, if this will work. There we go. Let me just read a few sentences from her blog post. It says, how my iPad surprised me. When I first heard that we were getting iPads to do all of our work on, I thought it wouldn't be a very good idea. I thought I would never be able to keep all of my homework projects and so much more on just one tiny device. As the school year was about to start, I was getting nervous about keeping all of my things in one spot, afraid that I would lose it one day or all my stuff would delete. That first day that I brought my iPad home, I was not as excited as most people were. I was beginning to get frustrated with doing my work on here because I hardly knew how to work any of the apps that I could use, like Notability. And as the school year went on, I started to get the hang of how to do more things on my iPad. None of my things deleted, so I was beginning to think that having iPads was not as bad as I thought it would be. I think that day we went around to each classroom and learned from teachers that 8th graders really helped me get used to using the iPad and introduced me to new apps. I was also becoming more organized and putting things in the right folder in Notability. So Courtney goes on to say what a great tool it's been. She's really happy that she has the iPads, and it was new for her in 7th grade. They just used it a little bit on carts in 6th grade, but having that personal device, having that device with them all the time, just promotes that constant, organization and the learning, and it's just been very, very successful for our kids at the junior high. So thank you, that's our story. And we'll go on to the next person.
So the first question I have is one that I've heard many, many times. We continue to hear about reducing screen time in young children. I have 6-year-old girls. How much time should they spend on the iPad, on the iPhone, and on games? And what ages should you begin to increase screen time?
Well, the Pediatric Association recommends 1 to 2 hours per day. Just a quick stat. The average American child spends 8.5 hours a day in front of the screen right now. It's recommended 1 to 2. I recommend 1 to 2. I actually recommend 1 for younger kids, under the age of 6. around 6 or 7, and then increasing that slowly, giving more time maybe on weekends, but understanding developmentally it's really best to balance non-screen time with screen time as much as you can, erring on the side of non-screen time the younger they are.
How does the iPad program impact children with different learning styles or specific learning disabilities? Is it an equalizer, and do you need to adapt the program any differently?
I think the biggest thing, it is an equalizer. It's because everyone has the same access to the technology and the same access to the resources. But in Schoology, one of the things that we do with our support is if a teacher creates an assessment, they'll share the Schoology course with the support personnel that may modify that assessment in a way for a different student. So the other students don't know that that particular student gets a modified assessment. So things can be modified to meet the learning needs of the students, and the support is built in. The accessibility option is one of the things that Scott was talking about, how you can log in now. There's other things that you can do. You can turn on speech, so that anything that's highlighted can be read to you. So if you're a struggling reader, you can have the words in Safari, in a Word document, anything that you highlight can be spoken out loud. So there's a lot of things that you can do to change the visual perspective. You need to have things bigger because your eyesight's not so good, so there's a lot of ways that you can personalize the learning. And having that learning management system actually helps you differentiate to those students at the same time, where those students don't always know the person next to them is getting a different assessment because it's been differentiated for them. So it's nice that it's, they feel that they're just as equal as everyone else. I think no one has the device.
What's the role of parents in the transition to using technology in our learning?
First of all, we are the parents. And I say we, I'm a parent. And so education isn't at school, it's also at home. And so I think it's really important that we as parents are really thinking about what that means and what our specific values are in our own home, and then how that fits into the world of school. I think certainly parents, as I'm sure happens, are part of conversations and development and thoughts, but in the end, parents have to make their own decisions in their own homes about what works best. I mean, there may be some families who say, absolutely, you should have iPad now and be creative, and other families say, no, we are not going to have any time away from family time. It's going to be all, we're going to do something together as a family without having screen time. Every family is different, and I think figuring out your own family values and what that means, and being comfortable with that, and understanding where the school stands and what that means, and being comfortable with that. And there are going to be conflicts sometimes. There are going to be times, by the way, when your kid comes home and says, I have to be online tonight for 35 minutes, and then they play a game or whatever. I mean, there's always going to be those times. And that's when, at home, we have to figure out how we respond to those things.
I think the biggest thing for parents is to be a parent. You don't want to be a friend of the child, but be a parent and actually set down the rules and the guidelines. I think the hardest thing that we see at the junior high level is the game playing. It's very, very hard, especially boys, to not play games on their devices. And so if you're the parent, you set those guidelines, and if it's work time and it's 30 minutes and you're with that student, helping that student out, then that's going to help them stay focused. We allow students to play games as when their work is done, and they can't play anything violent, but it depends on the teacher in the classroom or in the study hall or whatever. But schoolwork is always the priority with us. I think the other thing is that modeling is a big thing. I mean, how many of us have a digital device or a personal device? And how much are we on our devices as a parent when your students are asking you how your day-to-day is questions, and you're like, wait a minute, I have to answer this text, and then, you have to model what you want to see the behavior of your students as well, or your kids. And so many times we hear parents saying, well, you can't, but then they pick up the phone and they text while they drive, or they do things that they don't want their kids to do or see, but they sometimes don't think about it. Kids imitate what they see. So being aware of what you're doing and making sure that you're setting a good example for the kids as well.
We didn't, something that's important, the kids aren't part of that equation, nor should they be. What I mean by that is, the kids who often, for the first couple months, it is so exciting to come home with that iPad, especially for younger kids. It is just super exciting. And what's important is that they're going to feel ownership of that, and they're going to say things like, "You can't go through it. What do you mean? This belongs to the school. This is mine. It's school." It's not. They're young. You're the parent. They're the kid. Go through it. Look through it. Make sure what they're doing is appropriate and safe. And so understand that when that extension from school to home happens, there can be pullback as the kids get older about, this is mine, what are you doing, why are you limiting? But keep those boundaries clear and consistent in your homes.
Is there a website or someplace that we could seek out the latest and greatest on parental controls?
Yeah, that is an awesome question. The answer is there are. First of all, you all may know about commonsensemedia.org, which is probably, it's my favorite website on the planet. And my son knows that we don't do anything in our house. Movie, video game, website, app, nothing until he goes on Common Sense Media and shows me what it says. And then we make a decision together about it. Also, our website, childrenonline.org, we actually have recommendations for the best software. We don't get any money or anything, so it's just based on tried and true parent feedback and what we've experienced. I will say, the longer I do this, the more I'm in favor of non-technology limits. That parental software is great, but in the end, having clear limits with language and then taking away all the devices every night until they're 16 and not allowing them to take their devices except for their smartphones, which we can discuss, which is a whole discussion, but not allowing tablets taken to slumber parties, overnight, things like that. Being careful about where they're using their iPads because they're going to want to use it for recreation, but keeping in mind screen time isn't just watching something. The importance of screen time in my mind is all about social emotional growth. And social emotional growth is tough to do in front of a screen, even if it is interactive. So keeping in mind that is important for parents.
There's been a question asked to me, so I will read that and see if I can answer that. The question is, what is the plan in District 36 with respect to iPads? I know we're currently testing them out in several classrooms, and what are the next steps? One of the reasons why we wanted to have this kind of a conversation tonight with these particular speakers is because we are taking our first steps in District 36 in this area. And what we decided after the strategic plan came out a couple years ago was to work with our district tech committee and come up with, this is our first year rollout of iPads. We decided to pilot iPads in all 8 grade levels, 1 through 8. So we had one classroom in first, one in second, one in third, and one in fourth. And then a team in fifth, a team in sixth, a team in seventh, and a team in eighth of students using iPads. The difference between the grade levels are that 1 through 4 students leave their iPads at school all the time and use them from carts, and the 5 through 8 students take their iPads home every night. And what we're doing this year is literally trying to figure out the best way, some of the ways that we're seeing our teachers use iPads in the classroom. And we're sort of toward the end of that process right now. If you've gone to any of our school board meetings, every board meeting we've had some sort of a presentation from our teachers talking about how the teachers are using them in the classroom. The board meeting that's coming up in next week on Tuesday, we have a longer format presentation from a 2nd grade experience and then a 6th grade experience. And then we're going to be presenting the big sort of what we've learned about the project to the board in April. And the board will be listening to sort of this is everything that we've learned so far this year from focus groups, from surveys, from classroom observations. We've also been doing some specific measurements. We are using that Sandwich scale that you learned about tonight, the substitution, augmentation, modification, transformation scale. So we're also touching on that. And also the NET standards, and those are the National Educational Technology Standards for students. We have all of those as part of what we're measuring in each of those classrooms. That again all comes out in April. And then the board does make their decision in May as to where the program will go next year. So that is the long answer to what's the plan in District 36. And the next steps are up to after the board hears the report from all of us, they're going to be making the decision as to where we go after that. We just have a couple more minutes left in our panel. I'm going to ask our speakers if there's sort of one more thing that they'd like to end with to relate to the audience.
I think that the biggest thing that I've seen with the one-to-one rollout at our school is that we're providing tools for students that they're going to be using the rest of their lives. I mean, digital personal devices are here to stay. They're not going away. So if you can instill a curiosity, instill a yearn to learn with those devices, it's not just for playing games or texting people, but actually you have access to the world's information at your fingertips. And it's not so much now that we have to like teach you how to find the information. You can find the information. Now it's that those critical thinking skills. How do I know the information I have is correct? How do I evaluate the information that I'm finding? Because I can look up facts all day long, and I'm able to do that. When I grew up, I never had the opportunity to do that. I had to look at an encyclopedia that my parents bought when I was born. So by the time I was like 12 years old, it was all old stuff. And the library wasn't open on Sundays. And access to information is just amazing right now. So giving these students a tool that they have in their hands that they can use just to learn with and to increase that curiosity and to support that, I think is really helping our kids to succeed in the world. So I think it's an important thing.
I feel like one of the big struggles today in the world is that there seems to be like a struggle between, is technology good? Is it hurting our family? What does it mean? And really, I think we all look at it the wrong way, so to speak. It's not about technology, it's about parenting. Technology is an incredible, wonderful, amazing tool. And it can transform education, transform lives, transform the way soldiers are able to communicate at home. It is incredible what's happening with technology. And that's great. We are parents, and we take care of our kids, and we love them, and we don't need to be afraid of the technology. And I think sometimes it's easy to be afraid of the technology because the kids are running laps around us. By the way, I've been doing this for a long time, and no matter how much I know, kids know far more than me. I know that every single school I go to, there will be a kid in the audience who knows much more than me about technology, everywhere, all the time. That's okay. I know more about kids and child development and parenting, and that's what counts. And so I think in your own home, be strong, be comfortable, be loving, take care of your kids, and appreciate the technology, but don't be scared by it. Just be the parent you've been.
I can't think of a better way to end the evening than with that quote. Thank you so much. I have a few additional thank yous I'd like to add right now. I'd like to first of all sincerely thank the foundation who made this all possible tonight and all the planning that went into this evening. And I just really appreciate being a part of that. And on behalf of Allison and I, thank you from the district. I'd also like to thank the tech people who helped us tonight. We have Laura Fenwick up there, who you probably didn't even notice, who's videotaping the proceedings. And in the back of the booth, we have Nick Korzenowski. He's our network guy. They're both part of the tech team here in District 36. Thank you very much for your help behind the scenes. Thank you very much for coming.